Chapter 15. The Savior. The Cave. A Final Stand. Cold fingers gripped her, clawing at her ribs. At least that's what she thought it was. She was sure that what she felt must be her brother's hands, but it was just the snow, clinging to her as she was dragged like a corpse through a frozen field. Suddenly aware, like an animal woken from its sleep, she began to cry out into the night, her arm reaching weakly, grasping for her brother. Kit's tiny fingers found her hand in the darkness and gripped her tight. She felt the weight of his small hand in hers like an anchor, something to pull herself ashore to. But she continued drowning. She could barely make out the shapes of two figures above her. The voices of Mira and Theron arguing were barely audible. They were speaking in hushed tones as the world moved around her in swirls of pain and violent light. Her legs were useless, unmoving, and she felt an unnatural cold taking her. Too cold, even for snow during the long night. She could tell now that it wasn't the world that was moving, it was her. She was being dragged along the ground. She could feel the ridges and bumps of the earth beneath her. She saw trees moving above her. She stared through their branches. And then the sky opened up as they came out of the tree line. She saw Alterian shining down on her in small breaks in the clouds. She stared at the stars peeking through and looked into the dark spaces between them, welcoming her like a long hallway in the castle back at home. She'd never noticed just how beautiful the stars were. She felt a rock press against her back suddenly, and the world came rushing back, as did the pain. All the adrenaline, all the fear that had held back the waves of pain was gone now. She felt her body like she had never felt it before. She looked down at her legs, and for the first time she saw the arrow sticking out of her sternum. She could feel it pressing against her spine. Fear replaced all thought. A fire took hold inside her, and she started to weep in agony. She cried out for her home. She cried out for Theron. She cried out for her parents. "Shh," Mira cooed nervously. "Quiet, love," she added. She glanced around at her surroundings as if the trees themselves were listening. Then Rhea heard a deeper voice. Theron's. "Mira, there. A cave. Help me move her there." "I know, but it's the only choice we have. Move those branches. Careful with her legs." "Kit, where are you?" "Kit, can you start a fire?" "Start a fire, please, for your sister." "Yes, you can." "Mira, watch your head at the entrance." Shapes were moving about in the darkness of the cave, and panic was starting to set in. "Yes, you can, Kit. You did it before, remember?" "Kit, your sister needs you." "You don't need to cry. You can do this, just like we practiced, okay?" "Kit, do it now. She's dying." "Theron, there's a lot of blood," Mira whispered. Kit's eyes wandered to the trail of blood that now led to the cave entrance, and his hand began to tremble in Rhea's. The cave echoed with the sound of heavy breathing and sobbing. A small pool of blood was making its way to Theron's boots now, not that he noticed. Rhea's head turned to look at her brother. She could feel nothing now. Not the cave floor. Not the warmth of the cloak. She was growing cold as she watched Theron's boots step in and out of the blood. A moment later, a fire was roaring. She was staring at another unfamiliar cave wall of some far-off place. She wished now more than ever she was back home. She missed the days when her biggest worries were finding her brother walking the halls at night, or hearing her parents talk about some distant ball they had to attend. She could tell now she was dying. "We need to seal off the entrance. They'll see the fire," Theron said out loud, mostly to himself. Mira, as if reading his mind, moved to the entrance and raised her hands. She closed her eyes and muttered some words, and soon a wall of black appeared, too solid for smoke and too much movement within it to be a wall. It moved like a liquid cloth. The world beyond was now nothing more than a dark shroud. From the outside, the mouth of the cave was now just as any other cave, shrouded in shadows. On the ground, Rhea's mind was reeling. Tears streamed down her cheeks and onto the cold stone floor. Mira dropped to her knees beside the girl, taking her other hand. "Thank you, Mira. Come on, we need to remove this arrow quickly, Theron muttered, falling in line beside Mira. Mira lifted the fabric to take a peek, and winced. Her eyes met Theron's. Theron, she began, but found no other words. Theron already knew what she was going to say. He didn't speak. He had already guessed it. He closed his eyes, and for the first time since they met, Kit saw a weariness overtake Theron. He looked older now. The lines on his face looked as canyons. At that moment, something happened that Kit would remember for the rest of his days. They all heard a snort as, walking through the cloud of darkness, a great white horse walked slowly into the warm cave. It stared at them, and as if it had conveniently found itself back home in rain, it sat beside Rhea and the fire. Mira scoffed, mouth wide open as tears streamed down Theron's face. He studied the saddle and saw the distinct floral markings of Rain stablers. This could only be the horse of the rider that had attacked them. Theron looked down at Rhea to find her pale but smiling. This horse, this beautiful creature, stared back at her. Theron's knuckles gripped Rhea's dress until they were white. He crumpled into a ball, falling forward, pressing his forehead to Rhea, and began to weep. Mira placed her hand on Theron's back. Kit could only stare and hold his sister's hand. He'd never noticed how much bigger she was than him. It only occurred to him now that one day he would grow older. One day his hand would be large enough to hold hers in it, and yet, as the life left his older sister, he realized she would not be there. She would be nothing more than a shadow in the palm of his hand, in those tiny moments where he would glance down at it. Nothing more than a memory to hold on to. Tell my parents I'll be okay. When you find them, please, Sir Theron. Theron raised his head as she spoke, surprised by the break in the silence. He looked into her eyes and nodded. Forgive me. I have failed you, he begged. She shook her head. You've kept my brother alive. She looked over at her brother now. Deliver him to the gates of Portus. Swear it. I swear it, my lady. Then you have not failed. She smiled at him. Kit is the best of the Vandrins. We always knew that. And now, she offered Kit the brooch from her dress with her family crest, a crescent moon. Now he will be the last, she said weakly, the emotions welling in her throat. Rhea, please, her brother sobbed. The time for crying is later. Right now you must fight. Make it to Portus, and when you do, you be the best version of yourself you can be, little brother. You carry our whole family with you now. But what will I do without you? He sobbed, almost incomprehensible. The same things you always did. She poked his nose, her hand trembling. But I'm afraid of what's going to happen. Aren't you lucky for that? She winked. She closed his hands around the brooch and pressed it to his chest. Your family will walk in stride with you always, in every path you take. None shall stand in your way. You will be the greatest wizard of the age. And promise me that you'll never forget where you came from. Her brother nodded. He collapsed into her arms, and she ignored the pain. Theron and Mira looked at each other again. Mira's face was stern and grave. Only hours ago she was forgiven. Now, Mira was as much a fugitive as Theron. When Kit came back up to wipe his tears from his cheeks, his sister's face was frozen, smiling, staring at the cave wall, and she was gone. Mira and Kit sat alone in the cave by the warm fire for more than an hour, huddled together for warmth as Kit slept beneath Mira's arms. Without a shovel, they did the best they could and buried her as deep as their blades and hands would allow, and covered her with fresh snow. That would have to do until they could come back to claim her. If they could come back. Theron was on his knees, staring at the grave. He had known her for so short a time. know nothing about you. And yet I owe you so much. He could not finish his sentence. He curled over her grave and sobbed like a child. He cursed the gods under his breath, spitting their names forth until his tears stained the snow. I will not fail you, he said angrily, more to himself than to her. He finished speaking, unable to find words that could speak to a soul, and sat in silence for a moment. He sighed, feeling the heaviness of the last several hours. He was wearied with sorrow, and so it must have distracted him from the shadow sneaking up on him. He was lost in thought when he felt a blade touch him on the back. "Rise, Theron, son of rain," a deep voice whispered. Theron froze. His mind went to Mira and Kit, who were hidden in the cave still, safe. Theron's mind raced, but outwardly he remained calm while he cursed himself for his mistakes. He obeyed and stood slowly, hands up, and he turned in place to see the crimson cloak of Alara and the battered face of the very same foe he had faced atop the mountain pass all those hours ago. "Sir Killian, I thought I killed you when you fell from the mountain," Theron replied with a dark smirk. "You might look better if you had simply died," he poked. "Do not jest with me, fool. You took the little ones. Where are they?" Theron sighed and his eyes went to the pile of snow. It took a moment for Killian to register. Then his eyes went wide. "You killed them? They were children!" Killian raised his blade and Theron closed his eyes, waiting for the final blow to come, but from the cave he heard a shrill, "Wait!" as Kit came wandering out of the cave. A moment later he was followed by Mira and her bow. Killian locked eyes with Kit, eyeing him with a warmth that was both foreign and welcome in this frigid world. Then he looked back at Theron, confused. Kit told him everything he knew. He told him of the dash out of the wagon at Theron's request. He told them of how they were cornered by Iranian and Theron saved them, and how he alone had kept them safe and warm until this very moment when Killian found them. He couldn't bring himself to speak about Rhea. "The girl died not even 2 hours ago, when one of my people caught up to me," Theron spoke now. "Let me do one good thing with my life, please." Theron slowly let his hands fall when he saw that Killian was now calculating him in a different light. "Let us talk," he finally suggested, "in quiet. Let the boy sleep inside." Killian nodded but did not sheath his blade. When they were alone, Theron walked to the tree that they had buried Rhea under and let himself fall. For the first time in a long time, he felt as though he could rest as he pressed his back to the trunk of the tree. He had worried about the children, and then when Mira arrived, he had worried about her. Now, there was finally someone competent, that he didn't care enough if they lived or died. He chuckled to himself even as the blade in Killian's hand shone in the darkness. "Soldiers will come. Soldiers that will want to find me and take me back to Rain, to the Queen, to make an example of me." Killian stayed standing as Theron spoke, watching him as he stood sentinel near the mouth of the cave. But Killian did not speak. Theron took that as his cue to continue. "When they come, and it will be sooner rather than later, for they are fast and without mercy, they will kill any they find with me. The one that killed Rhea, that was one of them. And he was but one soldier. Many dozen will come to find me. What do you suggest?" Killian asked in a whisper with less spite in it. Theron found himself thankful for the small mercy. "Mira, she takes the child on horseback. You follow them straight to Portus. I'll stay behind and buy you time. And you? You wish to be taken prisoner?" "They won't take me," Theron replied. And there was a fierceness in his tone and a flame on his tongue that Killian saw, and he nodded solemnly. "We are agreed then. Let them rest an hour and—" "No." Theron rose with a surprising speed. "Mira must go, now, immediately." Theron stepped towards Killian with a slight limp that was not there before. "There is no time." He grabbed Killian's cloak and Killian stared back at him with concern now deep in his face. Theron ignored his pity. "Do not underestimate them. You'll die, Killian said after a long pause. So shall we all, Theron replied with a shrug. He looked up at the clouds, now breaking. Stars were shining down on them now as the snow let up. The storms of twilight were passing, and the long night was coming to an end. Your leg, Killian finally spoke, nodding at his limp. I can help with the pain. Theron ignored him. You'll find a horse inside. It can carry Mira and the boy. You can follow close behind. Killian wasn't sure if he was staring at a hero or a madman. I'll buy you as much time as I can. Thank you for keeping them safe, Killian said. I failed. I see Evandrin in that cave. A prodigy of our people, alive thanks to you. Go, Killian, soldier of Alara. Theron smiled at him, and for the first time Killian smiled back. Moments later, Mira walked out of the cave with the horse. Kit followed behind sleepily and with tears staining the soot in his face. Theron spared no moment. He went to Mira and placed a hand on her cheek. He stared into her face and looked at a lifetime that could have been. He saw his future in her eyes become nothing more than wind. I have so much to say and no time to say it, he whispered. Killian got the horse ready and placed Kit in the saddle as he pretended not to hear. We have fought together for a lifetime, Mira simply said. There is nothing you could say that I don't already feel. And so he didn't say any more. Instead, he pulled her into a kiss. His heart leapt in his chest, his stomach felt like it had turned, and he felt warmer than he had felt since they left Rain. He felt the fire of every campfire they had sat at together, and the buzz from every glance that they had ever shared since becoming soldiers as children. She was everything to him. And for the first time in his life, Theron felt true and lasting happiness. And when she pulled away, he was thrown right back into the world of blood and ice. She had tears in her eyes when he opened his. Theron, Killian whispered. Theron nodded, knowing it was time. Mira gave him one last kiss and uttered the last words he would ever hear from her. I love you, Theron, and I shall never forget you. As she turned away from him, the face of the lover was quickly replaced with the steely gaze of a warrior, the forgiven. The soldier within her emerged, and she had a mission to finish. Mira glanced at Killian and took off in a gallop. To Theron's surprise, Killian did not move. Portis is that way, Theron said, lightening the mood. And my enemy lies that way. My allies are that way. He pointed in the direction that Mira had just left. And as of about an hour ago, I have an ally standing where you stand now, too, Theron. Killian sighed and ran a hand through his dark hair. I will not let you die alone. No. Remember, I promised you it would be me that kills you. Killian smirked and took a step towards the cave to wait for the enemy. And here I thought I'd get to die alone in peace, Theron responded. They both laughed. At the top of the hill, only a few miles away, a dozen riders in black were making haste their way.